All right, Edward, Hustletown, how are you? Welcome back. You've been kind of MIA for a little bit. What's going on?
Yeah, the wife. She's off Sunday and Monday, so it was all about her that day. I was tuning in as much as I could while we were chair shopping, but I loved hearing Magic's point of view and everybody else that was speaking about yesterday's space. So my apologies. Never far away though.
Okay, apology accepted. And make sure you put your PTO in those days into the system. Luce, welcome.
Hello, everybody. What's up?
Lu- Luce made it to the DM speaker group. Luce, ChatGPT really likes your input, your questions, your comments. And did you read your feedback today?
Yeah, I did. Maybe I improved.
Yeah, Luce, the feedback from ChatGPT for Luce based on yesterday was you mentioned FSD is needing to reach 1 million miles. Actually, that's a follow-up question here for you that we can get to later. Let's see, Lucha's feedback. Let me see this here. Got a B plus. Shared a balanced take, acknowledging Tesla's high valuation while considering the impact of technological advancements. Provided insights on AI and FSD and explained why FSD may not reach full autonomy soon. Cons could have been more specific on financial implications and broader strategic context. There you go. All right. Alexander, welcome.
Thank you. Hello.
Hello. Alexander got a B, made occasionally relevant interjections, and was respectful and addressing Magic's perspective, participating constructively in discussions about oil prices, Tesla valuation, and geopolitical risk. Minimal input, but that was because I limited his input. So that's all right. Edward, how are you?
Pretty good. Just really busy lately, driving people around. I try to get on this. I try to get on your Tesla Live every day. I'm listening in the background most of the time, but I think it's important to let everybody know that this is kind of a free service you guys are providing, and clicking the like is really a simple way to pay it back.
Absolutely. I mean, I have patrons, subscribers, members, sponsors. Most importantly, we have 3 sponsors. Um, and those are monetary support, but I understand most people can't add on one more thing. There are some people who kind of tip one time on X and on YouTube with super chats, but you know what I really need is for everyone to show support, whether it's monetary or non-monetary. It has to be a community effort, has to be. All the listeners have to hop into YouTube, hit that like button, share the channel on X, like and repost the spaces so that we can grow rapidly to this break even point. We are at 3,000 subs on YouTube. It takes 2 seconds to subscribe and it's free. And we need to get to 10,000. It takes 2 seconds to like the video. We need to get to 1,000 likes per episode. At that point, we get to break even, which is very critical. Okay. Edward.
Yeah, I was just wondering if there's any way to get through to Yacarino or Elon Musk, somehow through Spaces. I mean, to get through to see if there's a way that they can get Spaces monetized. I think that would be a huge help for you.
Yeah, I mean, you would think, right? I mean, Elon, we just crossed 2-year anniversary of Elon's purchase of Twitter. And I think when you look back on it, most of the bots are gone. Like most of the crypto bots and other bots are gone. It's still like 100%. I still see every now and then, but most of them are gone, which is great. Like that's something the Twitter previous management couldn't accomplish, and Elon accomplished that. On the monetary side, it's still the kind of like a couple of people here and there post their income that is material to them. But I don't think that's a widespread thing. And how what is being monetized is like why some tweets go viral, some don't, is a complete black box still, even though it's supposed to be kind of open source code and all that stuff. But people don't really know who's making more than others, which is all right, I guess. I mean, I don't know. Like you would think that they would make that kind of like on YouTube. It's very much known, like which video makes how much, what are the sources, ads, super chats, memberships. I know exactly what I'm getting and why, and I know the drivers exactly. But on X, it's a black box. Why? So maybe they'll change that at some point. And the spaces are not monetized. So I mean, my last paycheck from X was like $20, even though I spent 10 hours a day on X. So um, I don't know. It is what it is. Okay, Dallas.
Yeah, running 12.563 end to end. First time getting to use it. This thing's amazing.
Okay, Edward. What's a couple of things that I told you to tell us about it today?
We were talking about like political implications on what basically how the Trump Elon pact is going to help them move forward. I think the biggest part is the deregulation or just regulating properly federally the robotaxi network. If they can regulate that federally at all and have any chance, that's massive implications for Tesla and just for the economy in general. I mean, that's first and foremost.
Great. All right. Any questions for Edward, Alexander, Hustletown, Luce? Please request to speak. We have a bunch of things to talk about today. Let's see. Alexander, you are our robotics expert. In AI Amateurs last night, we discussed Optimus versus the hundreds of other humanoids that are coming to market. I mean, the number of companies that are designing and announcing humanoids is an order of magnitude more than automakers that used to make these insane press release announcements about their upcoming EVs. So robotic space, humanoid space specifically, is becoming super congested and populated and crowded. And it's not clear to me at this time what Tesla will do to make sure that Optimus has the same market share and 100% of the industry profits that its cars have today. What's your view? What do you think Tesla has that will ensure leading market share and profit share in Optimus?
Well, first of all, Tesla has a lot of compute, access to a lot of compute, and they also has access to a lot of capital and knowledge. They have a great team, and they have the manufacturing expertise to ramp finished product.
Okay, so Alexander says compute, capital, team, and manufacturing expertise. Now, Alexander, if you look at OpenAI, Microsoft, and NVIDIA partnership with Figure AI, they have compute, 10 times more compute than Tesla does, 10 times more capital than Tesla does, and a team. Every single one of those companies also have this software team that I believe is necessary for building a humanoid. Manufacturing expertise, however, they may not have that. Is that what gives you comfort that these companies don't have the manufacturing expertise?
Yeah, but like OpenAI is working together with Figure, and somehow they're gonna release a product of their own and fighting each other on the same market. I don't really get that.
Luce, what do you think?
I think that Elon implied in one of his tweets that Tesla has like the most difficult part is being able to manufacture Optimus, the tooling, etc. So I think that Elon thinks, at least Elon, or what he says, that the edge Tesla has is the manufacturing.
Alexander, Luce seems to agree with you that manufacturing is going to be the leading, is the reason why Tesla separates itself from the rest of the pack. Although some Chinese automakers are also hopping into this humanoid space, and they have manufacturing expertise as well. So I'll get back to Alexander to get his thoughts on that. But before that, I see Edward's hands up. Edward, go ahead.
Yeah, I think the compute is pretty balanced, meaning I think almost any of the companies can just hammer out the compute with buying, putting a ton of capex into the compute and buying the from NVIDIA or whatever. But Tesla has the FSD team. They already have the product. Okay, they just have to translate it to the Optimus bot. I mean, they're already translating it to the car. I don't see anybody really getting that close to that side. And then the manufacturing, it's not even close. I mean, first of all, they have the factories ready to roll, and they're probably already kind of working that out with 20 robots already walking around. I mean, I don't think any of the companies are even getting to that manufacturing stage. So they at least have a year or two, no matter what, on those two elements, in my opinion, before the other companies even kind of get close to starting.
Okay, Edward said FSD expertise is transferable to the Optimus project. And I have said that too before. And but we don't exactly know how much transferable. Like I think first of all, we know there are two separate teams. There's an Optimus team and then there's a FSD team. I don't know the overlap of the Tesla AI team between those. I'm sure the Optimus team is recruiting some people from FSD team. What percent of the people work on both projects, I don't know. I think Tesla hires for the Optimus project separately as well, as you can see from their job postings. So I'm not sure what, like, for example, obviously the cars don't have hands, they don't have feet, they don't have to balance themselves. So like, it's not clear to me how much the two softwares will overlap. If anybody has I don't have any expertise in software. So if anybody has some views on that, I would love to hear your argument. Let's go to Lauren.
Yeah, I think another area where they're going to have a big advantage when they go to actually productize this is the service network. I feel like these robots they're complicated enough that things will break, but they're also big enough that like shipping it back by airmail or something would be a pain in the neck. And having a local Tesla service center that you can bring your robot to and get its hand fixed or whatever is something that other companies in this space will have trouble replicating and keeping up with.
Thanks, Lauren. Edward, then Alexander.
Yeah. When it comes to the robot, and sorry, I'm a little bit mentally distracted, but when it comes to the FSD side, okay, the FSD robotaxi side, once they kind of complete that project, these employees are what, sitting around doing nothing? I mean, I think all the employees are basically going to get transferred over to the Optimus project. I mean, do you guys
Okay.
think?
So this is something I was actually thinking about last night after my AI amateur space. And does the FSD timeline impact Optimus timeline? So let's think of two possible worlds going forward, two possible futures. In one scenario, FSD is done tomorrow. We're ready to launch robotaxis tomorrow. Does that accelerate the Optimus timeline? Versus a second scenario where FSD is delayed by another 5-10 years. Does that mean Optimus doesn't come to market for another 5-10 years? So, these are topics that we can discuss, dig into, analyze in detail, and it would really help if there are people in the audience with software expertise that can come up and contribute. Let's go to Alexander.
Yeah, and Tesla has something that the other companies does not have. They have the biggest balls of them all.
Okay.
It is important
just
to
for
push.
fun.
You're talking about the robotic metal balls, right?
Yes.
That's
I'm just
SpaceX.
kidding. All right. Yeah, I wanted to make two comments. I think one is around the manufacturing expertise, and not just that, but the vertical integration. And so everything from sort of the AI software, neural nets, down to the actuators and manufacturing processes and machinery. And I think for new markets, like, if the robot's a new market, vertical integration is really important for these markets. So Apple with the iPhone and Tesla with EVs are examples where the leaders and most profitable companies are vertically integrated. And then I think another important thing is, I think Elon's just probably the world's foremost expert in sort of complex industrial systems. And so, you look at Jensen's comments about XAI setting up the data center. And even though OpenAI and Microsoft had a ton of capital and really smart people, XAI is the one that Jensen says, can set up the data center the fastest. And so I think sort of these are two key areas that can help Tesla and Optimus.
Just for fun, can you please repeat in one sentence the first point you made and the second point?
Yeah, first point is vertical integration. And for new markets, vertical integration is really important. And then the second point is just Elon being the sort of world's leading expert in sort of complex systems.
So if, let's say, for example, just for fun, if Elon took a cabinet position leading DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency, with the Trump administration, was that lower your probability estimate of success for Optimus project, i.e., 1 million Optimus produced per year by 2030?
Yeah, I think any time that, the less time Elon can spend on it, the lower the probability. I think cabinet position is low probability for me.
Would you put a number on that low probability, just out of curiosity?
Single digit percent.
Okay, thank you. So just for fun, Tesla's vertical integration is unmatched specifically for the Optimus project. Tesla produces the 4680 batteries, has a Tesla AI in-house team, may have some sort of partnership with Grok or some sort of supplier relationship, or maybe an equity investment in XAI, and building the humanoid from ground up for scalability at mass volume from the very beginning. And what else? And also has an FSD team that has accumulated some transferable knowledge, okay? And also has the in-house training compute. And also has the brand, I think Robert would say. Great. As I speak of the devil, he just comes up. Robert, go ahead.
There is a commonality because our cars need to understand what pedestrians or bicyclists or other humans on the street are doing. So they had to do a lot of training to understand what humans do, how they move, how they react, how they predict what their next move is on the street. That training translates right into Optimus as well.
Thank you, Robert. I see we have two more hands, and we're going to continue with this topic for another 10 minutes, and then we're going to switch topics. But in the meantime, please take a moment to head over to YouTube and hit that like button. And I'm going to read our audio ads in the next 30 seconds, so you won't be missing anything here. Tesla Live is proudly sponsored by Paymore, your trusted destination for buying, selling, trading, and recycling electronics. This episode is hosted on a laptop provided by Paymore. Paymore hooked me up with a MacBook Pro. I turned in my MacBook Air for cash that went to this MacBook Pro, and I couldn't be happier. I don't have to worry about putting ice water on my laptop now to keep it cool, so that and I can focus on these conversations more as well. So I really thank you very much for Paymore for doing that. You can join the Paymore revolution today. Visit one of their stores near you, or check them out online at paymore.com. And Tesla Live is Proudly sponsored by Joa, your go-to source for premium Tesla accessories. Are you looking to elevate your Tesla driving experience? Look no further than Joa. They offer a wide range of high-quality accessories designed specifically for Tesla owners who demand the best. Thank you, Joa, and thank you, Paymore, for sponsoring Tesla Live and the Tesla community. We are at 138 likes. Thank you very much, everybody. I really appreciate that. Luce, go ahead.
So it's interconnected with the manufacturing, but I think Tesla is way ahead in design as well. So when I see these robots compared to the Tesla one, I always see the hands. And I have to say that the Optimus hands are the most advanced and also beautiful, you need to say.
All right, Alexander.
Yeah, if we kind of boil down everything that has been said now, we have COGS. And I think COGS will be the thing that Tesla can compete with. Maybe you could say that Chinese brands will have also low COGS, but I don't think they will be allowed to sell Chinese humanoids in the US or in Europe.
Okay. Thank you very much. This is a great set of points that about a dozen people made on why Optimus will succeed as Tesla's EVs succeeded in the past. And if the audience has additional points, please reply to the space and leave on a comment on YouTube live chat. And if you listen to recording, comment below the video. And since we have a number of bulls on the speaker board right now, I'm going to start taking the other side a little bit on these discussions so we can have a balanced discussion. So Robert, for example, in previous episodes has said that Tesla has a brand that people trust. And that will also play a role in getting Optimus to wide adoption. But Robert, OpenAI also has a very strong brand. ChatGPT is well known around the world by used by hundreds of millions of people, and tens of millions of people subscribe to it. Do you think that OpenAI can compete with Tesla's brand in the future when it comes to humanoids and robotics?
Well, they don't have a transportation network that can get a robot to your house yet, and I don't see them as the same kind of brand, because when you trust a car to drive you or your family at 80 miles an hour next to a wall, you've built a different kind of brand in your head than if you're just talking to an AI and getting an answer here or there, right? Now, can OpenAI get there with robotics? I think they will too, but Tesla has such huge advantages because of the transportation as a service system that we call robotaxi.
Thank you, Robert. And that's a point similar to what Jake McCombs in YouTube Live Chat just said. He says another competitive advantage for Optimus will be its synergy with the robotaxi network. Tesla will be the only humanoid you can send places on its own. Great points. Okay, Alexander, your point from earlier, the manufacturing expertise, is a similar point to what Wes Wahlin made last night in AI Amateurs. Wes used to work at Tesla team, so I listen very carefully when he speaks. Also similar to what Elon has said as well in the past. Alexander, but the counterpoint to that is humanoids are not as complicated as cars to produce. I understand that the moving parts in cars isn't as many as humanoids, so maybe that's the point that you can make. Do you think building humanoids will prove scaling humanoid production-wise, hardware-wise, will prove just as difficult as the hundreds of Me Too EV companies around the world had to face?
Yeah, well, you need to cast aluminium parts and then you need to machine them to make the body. And I don't see how OpenAI have ever cast an aluminium part or machined it. So they don't know this. If you look at like Figure and how they produce their current prototypes, they're using like expensive prototype machines that are like really expensive. and if they go with those machines to produce like a bigger number of robots, their robot is going to be really expensive. I think Tesla knows what the machines to use, and if you don't have this expertise, you will end up with a really expensive product.
Okay, so Alexander is pointing out that Tesla has a unique angle here with getting to scale at a lower cost from the design phase. And Figure AI just simply cannot match that level of expertise and experience. Okay, point well taken. Very good point, Alexander. I think you got a lot of points with ChatGPT today. We'll see. I'm predicting an A grade. And I think combined with Just for Fun's point that vertical integration, I'm trying to think of a company that is as vertically integrated that's attacking humanoids, but I can't really think of any. I don't think BYD has announced any sort of humanoids just yet. Well, Tesla Trip is up on the speaker board right now. Wes, welcome to the speaker board. Thank you for joining us during business hours. What would you like to add to the conversation?
I thought we were going to continue the discussion about Optimus and about manufacturing, about shared engineering practices, things like that. What translates, what doesn't?
Yes, absolutely. So earlier, Edward made the point that FSD is transferable to Optimus projects. To what extent is that true? Or to what extent do the two teams, FSD team and the Optimus team, from a software perspective, overlap?
A lot of places. I think it's better to talk about the places where they might not overlap. But if anybody wants to bring up specific examples of where they think it might not overlap, I can talk to that.
Yeah. So, for example,
yeah.
Manipulation with the hand, walking, balancing the robot. I would think maybe those would be areas where they don't overlap. What do you think?
Yeah. Controls and planning is the way that I would separate out the engineering teams. So the controls and planning teams should be separate, but they should also coordinate very tightly because they have to use the same shared infrastructure, the same builds, the same operating system, the same drivers, the same embeddings, like everything underneath that is going to be nearly, if not exactly the same. Where they differ is how they structure their training runs, how much memory they have available, how tightly controlled the control loops have to be, how many different tiers of potential control loops that they'll have. I have some thoughts around how they can do, or how they probably are doing more fine-tuned controls. And like as you get closer to soft objects, like things have to dramatically change. Your safety critical controls have to be much tighter because you don't want to hurt those objects, right? And you have to be able to identify them. So anyway, that's a long, deep soapbox.
Okay. So Wes used to work at Tesla and SpaceX as well. Extremely valuable speaker to contribute to this conversation. And if you're liking this, hit the like button and subscribe on YouTube channel. And Wes told me secretly that once we get to 1,000 likes per episode, he will quit all of his jobs and join Tesla Live full time. Thank you, Wes, for that commitment. That's amazing. That passion you have for Tesla Live is incredible.
That's great. Thanks for signing me up.
I will double your pay. So you said that how the two teams structure training and access to memory could be different. Can you elaborate on those?
Yeah, my sense is that they're not as close, maybe is a better way to say it, to operating in a dynamic environment as FSD is. So when, we've seen the Optimus robots interacting, first we started seeing them with a tether, now they don't have a tether. And now people are more like standing. They're not really moving around the robot. And then when we saw them at We Robot, they were protected by engineers. And so they seem like, they're not really actually interacting in a dynamic environment yet. So that's the thing that I think they're at. So their training runs are going to have to be, they're going to be making more architecture changes to their model. They're going to have to, more tightly develop their control loops. to ensure that these robots don't do anything, you know, and I can go back to this point.
Wes, your connection is a little spotty.
Where I would focus my overall body movements, and that's where I would focus my teams on first. Because once they get very close to that, then the architecture should solidify. The training architecture should solidify greatly. They're going to know how much memory they have to work with, and then, for instance, like just as an example, once the robot is stable and in a stable position, this is when it's going to be doing its movements. They're not going to optimize for scenarios where the robot has to both be walking and paying attention, to like where dynamic things are and doing fine motor controls. It'll be standing while it's doing that, and or potentially bracing itself, with a third point of contact, so that it can really focus on these fine-tuned movements. Hope that makes sense.
Yes. Is the inference computer the same in Optimus and in the cars, or is that going to differ, you think, in the future?
I get the feeling it'll probably differ because there's different needs. It's not, a one-for-one type scenario, application set or application space. So they're going to have much different needs. I think the majority of those different needs are going to come in the fine motor control movements, where, you've got these crazy amounts of fine motor controls that they're going to have to do to instantiate these different scenarios, implement, certain things where it's probably really easy, relatively speaking, to, like, let's say, pick up a cup, like an empty cup, but then you fill that with water. It's like, what's the turbidity of that water? And then, what's the temperature of that water? And then, how much does that thing weigh? You have to do all of these other calculations to, like, figure all that stuff out. And that takes a lot of memory. They're going to have, quite a large context window to hold all of those details in memory. So I feel like they're going to need a lot more memory. Now, compute wise, I'm not sure that needs to be different. So I think the chip will be fine, but I think they're going to need a lot more memory, and they're going to have to train with more memory.
Very interesting. Thank you. Alexander?
Yeah, I want to ask you, Wes, what do you think the repeatability accuracy will be on Optimus? So for context, an industrial robot has about 0.1 millimeters repeatability.
Yeah, great question. I don't think they're going to target those scenarios first. So I would assume that they'll have a matrix, of support, and that it'll be, fine motor control movements, and they'll probably start with more like, 100 millimeter task, and then they'll go to a 10 millimeter accuracy task, and then 0.1 type things. So they'll probably try to outline, like, what can we do if the robot is accurate to within like 100 millimeters? And it can do that, 1 million times and be accurate within 100 millimeters. You could argue that placing a box, on a conveyor belt might be 100 millimeter type accuracy, if it's like kind of a big landing tray and then it just pushes it onto the conveyor belt, that type of thing. So that could be, one of the first scenarios. And then that's also the matrix could have, I would at least target a walking matrix too, like walking in a perfectly flat, very low tolerance of elevation changes. So like a perfectly smooth concrete floor with a lot of grip. That'd be like the easiest thing for me to do. That's really well lit. So like, kind of target that scenario with the 100 millimeter task, so that it's like just carrying a box that's not that heavy from one place to another, flat surface, well lit, industrial scenario, done. Like, do that first and demonstrate that you can do that, millions of times without issue. Like, that would be a good first scenario. And then you just kind of like walk the engineering scale from there. So that's my thought.
Thank you. Any questions for Wes? Please request to speak if you're listening on X, or leave it in live chat if you're listening on YouTube and monitoring both platforms at the same time. Let's go to Luce for his question.
So Wes, basically you think that the current compute hardware is not good enough for Optimus to be commercialized? Do you think we will need new ad hoc hardware, basically?
Maybe I'll make myself a little clearer. I think the first target scenarios are totally good enough. So I think they probably have enough compute and memory and the ability to ingest data and have the ability to do kind of like these 100 millimeter low dynamic environment, like ideal scenario tasks. I think they're fine for that. I think the issue comes in, I mean, if I was, running the team, I would be focused on like, okay, what's the total vision? What do we need to support down the road? Will the chip, support this? Will the amount of memory and the speed of the memory work? And then what does that timeline look like? If we have to build something out, because for chip development, it's like a 3 to 5 year timescale. And if you need a certain amount of memory, you have to design the board, the power requirements, like all of the other infrastructure that you need inside the bot in your training center, in your your compute clusters. Like all of that is on a timeline. So like you have to think about all of that ahead of time. So to make myself clear, today, fine, and maybe 1-2 years down the road, with the amount of scenarios they can support, fine. But like the 3 to 5 year scenario, that's where I think that they will need to redesign their board and probably take on more memory. There you go.
Thank you. Edward.
Yeah, quick question for Wes. I was wondering, because this isn't my specialty, but when it comes to the onboard memory, is there any way for these robots to have access to the internet, Wi-Fi, Tesla directly, so that they can complete tasks, so that they can pull that information to do specific things, or does everything have to be on board?
Oh no, I assume that one way they'll do it is a full OTA update. And then another way will be at the application layer so that it can start doing new tasks. So I would build, I mean, very rough like thoughts. I would build a small application layer that connected back to obviously a secure endpoint. And the robot would be asked to do something, by the owner. And it'd be like, oh, I don't know exactly how to do that yet. It could ask the cloud essentially, for feedback, and could potentially get pulled down a very specific set of not necessarily instructions, but more robust set of nets that could accomplish that task. And then over time, I would assume that would kind of, just build itself out so that you wouldn't need to do that. They would eventually work that in to the overall architecture of hopefully just the one frontier model, but having a set of models that kind of act like a mixture of experts, so that one, kind of like overarching model can reach out to more specialized models and go, oh, that's exactly how you would want to accomplish that task. Let's use that. But those are going to be so many. You're going to have so many of those that you probably won't be able to hold them all locally at any one time, because you want to be sure that all of your critical safety stuff is always running all the time. And so my thought is that over time that they will have something like that, the ability to kind of pull it down in near real time. There you go.
Edward.
Yeah, Wes, that was a great answer. That's exactly what I was thinking in general. But when it comes to, let's say, the apps, like you were talking about the apps, is it most likely that they will have like an app store where you can get a robot that can dance ballet, or you can get a robot that plays the piano, instead of every single robot knowing how to do every single task?
Yeah, I think every bot will have the degrees of freedom to perform certain amount of tasks, and I would assume they're designing them to be as agile, or even in some cases even more agile, and even better fine motor control than a human can. So for instance, it hopefully will have like a better reaction time than like an F1 driver, or it'll have more fine motor controls than like, a renowned painter or sculptor, things like that. Because these are the kinds of tasks that I think bots will be like, this will be their superpower. This will be why you want a bot. is because they'll have the ability to do that, things that humans just are not really that great at doing. But the ballerina scenario is interesting, because I do expect that over time that you will, one of the, I don't know, maybe the novel ways to look at the bot, why somebody might buy something like this, because it's not going to be terribly expensive. But without going too much into that, like just assume that everybody will be able to buy one and it'll last, 5 to 10 years. So it'll seem like, a high value purchase. And you should be able to talk to it and go, hey, like, I would like you to, do this with me. And you can train it for specific things, through it watching you, because this is how they train them now. So I expect that to be a very robust platform that they would eventually commercialize, and put into the final production. And I'm not talking like it's going to be what is it, Barishnikov or whatever, but I do expect that you'll be able to do things like this, where you'll be able to train it for specific things, and kind of that novel factor I think will be a big selling point, commercially.
Great, thank you, Wes. Wes, in AI Amateurs yesterday, I believe you expect 1,000th Optimus to be produced in 2025, by the end of 2025. What can you list maybe a couple of scenarios or indications that would make you push that out further, and what would give you more confidence on the other hand?
Yeah, to push it out further, like if for any reason the bot required huge amounts of complexity to assemble these individual pieces, like if we were seeing like a ton of really tiny pieces, or like really complex wiring, complex connectors, a myriad of ECUs or different boards, on the bot, it looked kind of haphazard. It didn't look as human as you would expect it to. Like it was bulky. It didn't look symmetrical. There weren't like what I would call like a production skin on it, because they just can't put it on because all the pieces are too bulky. That would make me push my timeline up. If you watched it and it was also a bit jerky, like a bit shaky, once it stops, like does it continue to move or shake or shudder? When it walks, is it highly repeatable? Are there like jittery movements, like when it walks, or is it more fluid? Because if it's more fluid, then you're going to do less stress and strain on the joints over time. And then, you can do millions of these. It's one thing to show like one video of one bot, like walking smoothly. And it's another one for it to like walk smoothly, like on a treadmill, for say 1,000 hours. And these are the kinds of stress tests that I would expect that they're doing now. And so that would make me push out my timeline. What would make me pull in my timeline is that they're already under their weight targets. They're under their complexity targets. They're under their like size envelope targets, which it seems like they are. Like these bots had production skin on them. They look, very, very similar, if not exact, to what they already said they were going to try to nail. And so I think that's ahead on the timeline, or on time. Obviously, the software is not there yet, or else we'd see these in the field, I think. I still think the brain, or the software part of the brain, is the long pole. To get all of that right is crazy, crazy hard. And so I'm sure that, that's the long pole. But that would allow me to like pull it in more. Like if I was able to examine, like I said last night, examine one of these bots, I could tell you, like how well this thing is put together, if it's production level quality, or if it's more like a PVT build, like prototype validation, or DVT, development validation, or really like a pilot production, which is right short of full production. So you'd want to go to soft production first, and that's like 1,000 build run, and that's with soft tools. It's not that expensive. And so I expect them to do that at some point this coming year, because it looks to me like, from a distance, that I'm pretty good confidence on now. And that would be very worth their money, because you'd want to demonstrate that, you can build let's say 100 one way, and then build 100 a slightly different way, and then be able to run them for thousands of hours and see which one worked better. These are the kinds of different ways that you might look at these builds. And building 1,000 should not cost that much with soft tools. Hard tools are required to make, tens of thousands of units before you have to change these tools out. But soft tools can easily do, 1,000 run, and then you can modify the tool slightly and do another 1,000, modify the tool slightly, another 1,000. Like, this is how they do large scale production. I hope that was helpful.
Yeah, that's very helpful. The one thing I think your connection is a bit spotty, but that's incredibly helpful information. And this segment on Optimus with Wes will be published on YouTube as a standalone video. So if you have any insightful questions you would like it to appear, this is going to appear as a standalone.
And I'm not hearing anything.
Yeah, this
Can
is going to
people hear me? Give
Yeah,
a thumbs up
that's all right. Hold on one
if you
second.
can hear me. Okay, so I see Hustletown saying you can hear me. I hear Edward speaking. Okay, I'm going to shut up now. I'll let Yaman fix things.
All right, I'm back. Wes, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Was I talking over people? I hope not.
No, you're fine. You're totally fine.
Okay.
I was just saying
Okay.
that this segment will be published on YouTube as a standalone evergreen video. So maybe about 30, 45 minutes. I'll invest some time into editing it on its own and then publish it on its own. You're making great points, and I have a couple of other questions that I think are useful, informative. So let's get Bull 2035's question first. Bull 2035.
Yeah, my question is, are there any current hardware limitations, anything that has to be invented anew that we don't currently have that will be necessary to do this at scale?
Yeah, good question. The actuators are definitely new. They may have to have designed new cables. I would assume that you'd want to have like kind of one cable that did not only data but also power, and then you'd have to have a potentially a redundant set of cables too, and all of those have to have the proper amount of shielding and be held correctly on the body. There's all these pinch points, and ensuring that you can do degrees of freedom, and everybody is always worried about weight, reducing kind of like a gram at a time, and demonstrating that you're always thinking about these types of things. So that's all relatively new because it requires innovation to get there. Because if it didn't, this would have already been done by now. Because there's so much TAM that revolves around having a bot that can do these things in the house that is bimodal. So these are all innovative things that need to be built. I would think that largely, again, the brain, the software brain is the long pole. But if I had to pick something that is secondary, it's definitely the hand. The hand looks very complex, and I hope that they're focusing on making that less complex. While the degrees of freedom is great, maybe one less or two less or three less degrees of freedom makes the hand like 100 times less complex. Should think about that, and trying to potentially put something in some minimal amount of production, because you can get, maybe 99% of your scenarios supported with that. So I think that is the next biggest piece of innovation. And then it's the amount of cycles that any given actuator or any given joint can do. And this is also requires innovation, because these are very specific joints that are taking very specific amounts of pressure, and all of that either needs to be simulated in a software environment, or you take the hardware and you hardware simulate it with different types of material all stacked together. So this is the stack tolerances discussion. But those are kind of like the next two things that come to mind.
Thank you, Wes. Wes, does the FSD timeline impact Optimus timeline? Imagine two worlds where in one of them FSD is developed tomorrow and robotaxis are ready to go tomorrow. We have millions of robotaxis going around the US. Does that pull in the Optimus timeline? Because it frees
Yeah,
up
totally.
because it frees up training compute and engineering talent. And in another world, if this is delayed by 5-10 years, does that mean Optimus is also delayed by 5-10 years?
Yeah, the two are not mutually independent. That's for sure, or exclusive. Optimus requires a fundamental architecture that can hold, billions, if not tens of billions, of different parameters and variables to kind of run inference on prediction. So these things are, inescapably tied together at a very low level, because all of the infrastructure that runs in the hardware, all of that stuff is the same. The only difference comes down to these fine motor controls and these extra degrees of freedom that the bimodal bot has. So these are all inextricably tied together. So let's say in a hypothetical world that FSD is solved, right? So what that means to me is that any given vehicle can drive for at least a year without critical intervention or without striking anything or without fault. So like that thing just goes, and the only thing that you have to really do is replace the tires, charge it, and clean it, that type of thing, or replace windshield wiper fluid or whatever. But it doesn't actually have a software issue. Let's say hypothetically that that's done. Great. So how does that apply to Optimus? Well, Optimus has a different set of constraints, but now you have this foundation by which you can build Optimus and these kind of reliable movements. And you can get to this kind of like sub-millimeter or potentially even like micron level of control loop accuracy. That's super important for the bot. So in a high level sense, if FSD is solved to that level of reliability, the likelihood that you're going to be able to make that bot walk with that same foundation level architecture is extremely high. I would bet on that. I would bet that you could do that. Now, can you make the bot walk in any type of static environment? Probably not without that foundation model, because that thing underpins its ability to handle these kind of complex scenarios, and that's complexity enough to start with. Walking in kind of any type of an static environment, just walking, without falling. That's complex enough. So that's my thought there. Did that help?
Absolutely. Thank you. Chansu.
Hey, Wes, do you think Optimus will be able to drive, non-FSD cars quicker, or sort of the world governments coming around to allow full self-driving cars globally? Which do you think will be quicker?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know of any regulatory laws around having a bot inside of a household or inside of a business, other than worker safety, and the general. You take liability on, by allowing this bot into your household. Like if it breaks, a vase, that's worth some amount of money, like that's on you, type of a thing. But you probably wouldn't want a bot around, potentially like walking around your house if it was full of vases, because that wouldn't work out probably really well for you, because there's always going to be issues, right? And I can foresee that being a thing, but I don't see any regulation around this. I think that you would kind of take on that liability, in the sense of you got a bot, that would be on you if it broke something. It wouldn't be Tesla's responsibility. It wouldn't be like, you file you call them and you say, hey, my bot needs service because it broke a vase. It'd be like, well, did you tell it to pick up the vase or did it knock it over? That's not a thing. The liability is on you. So anyway, that's how I see it. So I don't think that governments will have a say over it now, unless these bots are materially like harming people. If the bot is, doing severe damage, that's a whole different story, whole different ballgame. If these critical safety controls are not in place or not functional, then that liability is on Tesla. So I hope that kind of draws a clear line for you.
Thank you. And a great supporter of the space. Crunch, go ahead.
Hi, I have two questions. First on Optimus and the second on the stock price. Regarding Optimus, the question is, shouldn't we remember, like, to never second guess Elon, that we have to always keep in mind that his primary mission is Mars, and doesn't that minimally require human robots to build the Mars infrastructure, including a nuclear plant to power Mars operations and plants to build the hundreds of thousands of Optimus needed to prepare for the arrival of humans? Therefore, won't Earthbound Optimus production be secondary to perfecting fully autonomous Optimus Mars designs and high output operations where rapid Starship development will drive the schedule for producing Optimus that will also coincide with establishing the interplanetary Starlink network to reduce Earth-Mars latency to the physical, I think it's 27 seconds limit? And the second question is, isn't Tesla down because institutions are negatively positioned on Tesla, so they have no choice but to FUD to tamp the price down? And as soon as Tesla rolls off its temporary lows, they will all try to outbuy the other with predictable results. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Crunch. Wes, the first part of that question is for you. Do you think Optimus for Mars will take priority as opposed to Optimus for Earth?
No, I don't. I think that you need Optimus for Earth first. I think that's all the foundational level stuff that I'm talking about also applies to the Optimus that's going to Mars. So, or potentially going to Mars. Also, it's potentially easier to send a human. I think a human will have to go first as an overseer, at least. So I don't think it's just going to be Optimus alone. It's not like the rovers. These are whole different scenarios that are going to need to be accomplished, and it's just kind of a long ways away. So I lots of things can change in that amount of time. I can think of hypotheticals where, let's say, the Optimus is like fully functioning here, doing everything in your house, mowing your lawn, uh, folding all of your clothes, doing all of your dishes, doing all the things that you spend your time doing that you don't want to do anymore, doing all of those things. Why on earth wouldn't they ship that here? Why would they wait and do it on Mars first? I just don't see that happening, because like all of those things it's going to have to do there too. It's going to have to walk around the ship. It's going to have fine motor controls for potentially turning knobs that it can't do with software, changing out different types of faults in the system as the Starship makes its way to Mars, walking around on the surface, having to build these facilities. Like all of that stuff is very, very, very similar, if not almost exact, to the stuff that it's going to have to do for commercial homes.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's my thought on that.
And I think Tesla needs to succeed in selling Optimus here on Earth in mass for SpaceX to achieve its goal of colonizing Mars as well. So that all lines up. Thank you very much. And Crunch, the second part of your question about institutions, institutional investors spreading FUD, I don't think they are the source of FUD. I think FUD is coming more from legacy automakers, legacy dealerships, maybe short sellers, and but that's, I think, par for the course. Like it's just business. People want to try to prioritize their own well-being and their own sources of protect their own sources of income and delay Tesla's growth. But I don't think institutions. I mean, if institutions believe that they should be overweight Tesla, nothing is stopping them from doing so. Tesla's billions of dollars trade every year. I mean, every day in Tesla stock, and in some days, tens of billions of dollars exchange hands in Tesla stock. And so, if like the number of institutions that would not be able to fill in their order in one day is very, very, it's like a handful of institutions probably. So I don't think institutional investors are the source of FUD here. I hope that answers your question, Edward.
Yeah, a big question for Wes, and I don't mean to step on Yaman's toes here on this one, but when do you see, in your opinion, based on the FSD and the bot production right now, when do you see 1 million Optimus bots? Like, do you have a year or any predictions?
Yeah, good question. Obviously, that's not the next milestone that they're achieving, but I'm sure they have a schedule and a timeline built out that tries to get there. So maybe just to like quickly walk you through what I think the milestones are. I think literally the next target is going to be like 1,000 unit build because it seems like they've gone through and built at least 100 already. And so I don't know why you would go through and build 100 when the 100 that they've already built looks so good and functions so well. That's kind of a soft tool. Then the next one is more like a 10,000 run rate type build. And so I wouldn't do that until I was able to get enough engineering feedback on the, the first kind of 1,000 soft tool build. And that takes, anywhere from, 3 months to a year, depending on what you're seeing, what kind of issues you're seeing, and how many changes you have to make. So I would see that as kind of the next milestone. And then just to quickly walk through the next three, you would more than likely want to get at least another validation build of the 10,000 unit run, and you'd want to get a production validation run. And this is like, 6 months to a year to maybe 18 months. So 1 million is looking like, 2027, 2028 timeframe, if I'm thinking kind of pragmatically about what that timeline looks like.
Thank you, Wes. Any other questions for Wes? Please request to speak. Wes, I have one more on Optimus and then one on FSD. Let's see here. I think one of I think actually Edward did step on my toes here. It literally took the question out of my mind, out of my mouth. All right, the one on FSD, Wes. You said earlier that 1 year without a critical intervention is when FSD is done, and that would mean about 50 to 100,000 miles driven per robotaxi per year. 100,000 miles, I think, is about how many miles taxis in New York City drive, and about 30, 40, 50,000 is about how many miles each Turo vehicle drives. So I'm guessing somewhere between 50 to 100,000 per robotaxi. But humans don't have a critical intervention, i.e. an accident, on average for about 500,000 miles. So what gives you confidence that 1 year will be enough?
Yeah, great question. So I'm not talking necessarily about an accident, but I agree with you that accident-wise, like where it literally hits something, like where it shouldn't have and causes potential human damage, to like a soft human, that type of thing. That's not happening once a year. That's happening more like, once every 100 years for a given robotaxi. And then the statistical reliability of the whole fleet, maybe that's happening for the whole fleet, like once every 6 months to a year, because it's going to happen statistically, right? You can't can't really get the ghost out of the machine, and that is the target eventually, but I do expect that to happen. But I'm not talking about it hitting hitting humans as a critical intervention. I'm talking about like it getting, hitting a static object, like a rock in the road, like a big rock or something, and you have to, it hits this rock at a potential, some amount of crash energy, and the vehicle is down and now has to be intervened by a human. That's what I'm talking about. I hope that makes sense.
Absolutely. Okay. Yeah. I think Ashok mentioned in the most recent earnings call that they define critical intervention as an accident. And hitting a rock, obviously, I don't think is a big deal, or a curb or something. But hitting a human is, I think, kind of on the other end of the spectrum. Like, what about hitting another car? Is that critical intervention? At a minimum, I think it's got to be that, right? It may be property, some sort of with enough crash force that it deploys airbags would maybe a good way to do it. What do you think?
Yeah, anything that would require a police report, I would say would count. How about that?
Sounds good. Anything that requires a police report, I love it. Or a claim to insurance, maybe. Great. Any other questions for Wes? Please request to speak. Otherwise, we're going to switch topics. I couldn't catch, Wes, it's really sorry to do this, but I couldn't catch your answer to Edward about the timeline. My question, and I think his question was very similar, so I'm going to listen to the recording again. But how much time does Tesla need in its factories before, like, to test Optimus in its factories before external sales start?
Sorry, just to clarify, how much time does Tesla need to test?
Right.
Is that what you're saying? Test internally?
Correct.
Okay. So I would assume that they have some reliability targets with a certain set of scenarios. And if I were to set those up, I would want them to be, let's just hypothetically say that the scenario is like, walking and picking up a box and putting the box down, batteries like they've demonstrated. I would want to test that for somewhere on the order of like 100,000 hours, over like a set of 10 bots. So over 10 bots doing this for 10,000 hours each, things like that. And I would look for trends in the variability, over that time span. And this can all be accelerated too, because you can do this in simulation. But that's kind of like the way that I would look at that, to be set these kind of reliability milestones, and gates, milestone reliability gates. So that would be how I'm kind of figuring that out. Does that help?
It does. You said, for example, picking up and putting down a box, tested for 100,000 hours with 10 bots. Now, just for illustration purposes, would 10,000 hours with 100 bots, or 1,000 hours with 1,000 bots, would that be similar, or do you need to actually go for 100,000 hours with 10 bots?
Potentially, but then you start to introduce other variables. So you want to kind of limit the variability, because you don't want like this wide range of build variability coming into the equation. So doing it with a lesser amount of hardware kind of like limits that. And so you're more dealing with software, and you can see in just, like 10 bots, you could see certain trends come out of the software. That's where you would like debug it and go, okay, like this is totally a software issue. It's not a hardware issue. And then you can easily fix, if you do have a hardware issue come up, you fix them all. And you make sure that that hardware issue is eliminated out of the variable set. So you have this control, because you want to make sure that you are just looking at the software side. And another team can do, the hardware side. It's like, hey, we encountered this hardware issue. And then the hardware team is, oh, yeah. Like, we've seen that too. And we've designed this out, and we have this new part for you. Take the new part. More focus on the software side.
Thank you. That's very helpful. And Alexander?
Yeah, this question might be way into the weeds here, but Wes, do you think they are gonna use magnesium alloy for the body on Optimus?
Depends. If they have a weight issue, that could be helpful to have less weight. It's also potential, to have less surface area or kind of less volume. So it's the potential. I wouldn't, be surprised if some exotic alloys made it into the first, 100,000 that they make. If they're truly tight on some of their constraints. But on the other hand, I'm just not seeing that right now. I'm not seeing that. It doesn't look. I don't see any exotics in the body. I don't see their kind of their materials being, abnormal or unique or potentially like hard to source or hard to build. It looks like it's not very complex. It looks like it's kind of like lower cost materials, just like straight aluminum, which is fine. It's been demonstrated on airplanes, for the last 60 years that it does really good in millions of stress strain cycles. So like, I just don't see the need for exotics.
To Wes. Robert?
Yeah, the K-Scale robot company in Palo Alto, California, is using 3D printers that cost $1,200 a piece, and it prints out a material with a carbon fiber in it. They had me take a hammer to this material, and I didn't even leave a scratch on the material, and it's ultra lightweight. So there's a lot of different materials they can choose from to bring to bear here.
To Robert, any other questions, comments? Please request to speak or leave it in YouTube live chat. Very good conversation. I'm going to invest in some time into posting this as maybe a 40-minute standalone video on YouTube. And if you'd like to make sure that you get to watch that, head over to YouTube through the link at the top of our screens, hit like and subscribe, and turn on your notifications. And I think this conversation was very, very useful, informative. I'm going to enjoy re-listening to it as I edit the video as well, which tells you, I think, how dense it was. Okay, Wes?
Hey, real quick, I have about, I'd probably take one more question. I have like less than 5 minutes and then I gotta go back to listener mode.
Perfect, thank you. Silver Spider?
Yeah, hey, I just had a quick question about the Starship launch on Monday. Does anybody have any recommendations if somebody wanted to drive there, like as to which hotels or where somebody should sort of park themselves?
Sorry, but that's just obviously not part of this conversation here. And if somebody wants to help Silver Spider, you can reach out to them directly. Okay, looks like there's no other questions. Wes, thank you very much for your contributions today. And we'll see what ChatGPT grades you tomorrow.
Yeah, thanks, man.
All right, thank you. And I'll chat with you next time. Sounds good. Let's switch topics. We're going to switch topics to covering some news in the automotive front. Let's see, who else do we have here? All right. Couple of news on actually before that, a quick shout out to our sponsors, and please take a moment. If you enjoyed that conversation with Wes, take a moment to hit like and subscribe to YouTube channel. Help us grow. We're trying to get to 10,000 subscribers. And a quick word for our sponsors. Tesla Live is sponsored by Joa, your go-to source for premium Tesla accessories. At Joa, you'll find innovative charging solutions, stylish interior upgrades, protective gear, and cutting-edge tech add-ons. Use promo code TSLA Live at checkout to receive a special discount on your next purchase. And Tesla Live is sponsored by Paymore. At Paymore, you can buy the latest gadgets at greatest prices, sell or trade your used electronics for cash or store credit, and recycle old or broken devices responsibly, helping reduce e-waste. Thank you, Paymore, and thank you, Joa, for sponsoring Tesla Live and the Tesla community. All right, couple of news items on the legacy auto front. An activist hedge fund bought a 2.5% stake in Nissan. An activist hedge fund bought a 2.5% stake in Nissan. Nissan is having a lot of trouble in terms of their profits, losses, revenues, sales, and the stock price is actually trading even below COVID dip. So that kind of tells you in the economic environment where U.S. is growing at a healthy clip, Nissan stock price is lowest in the last 4 decades, and the company is worth about $10 billion. But they produce and sell millions of cars. So that could be a major bankruptcy that's going to kind of make the rounds around the world in terms of news cycle in the coming year. And I think these active hedge funds, when they take positions like this, they're ready for a bankruptcy filing kind of thing too. So, they're trying to secure their rights in a potential bankruptcy. So that's something to watch. And then second piece of news, VinFast, a topic that Machine used to bring up here, got a $2 billion equity injection from their owner, a billionaire owner. On top of that, $1.4 billion loan from a parent company that's also owned by the same billionaire, which kind of raises questions about why so many billions of dollars are being invested in a company like VinFast, which pretty much clearly doesn't have a future. So interesting topic to kind of keep an eye on as well. And on a front that is related to Tesla, and an episode that we discussed, yesterday's episode, where we discussed potential EV tax credits going away under the Trump administration. Donald Trump assigned a new head to the EPA. His name is Lee Zeldin, a congressman from New York. And it looks like he's going to freeze auto emissions standards at the 2027 levels, which would lower potential revenue Tesla can generate by selling ZEV credits. And he will also try to remove California's waiver to set its own standards, emission standards. So some changes coming to the ZEV credit market. Tesla makes about $1 billion or $800 million in $900 million in the last 2 quarters, each quarter. So this is a material topic for Tesla investors and also Rivian as well. Rivian is banking on ZEV credit sales to achieve its gross margin target in Q4. So this may take some time to play itself out. I'm sure it's going to be fought in the courts and everything. Nonetheless, for long-term investors, this is a topic to watch because these are hard cash, billions of dollars that finance Tesla's factory build out, as well as AI compute, training compute build out, buying GPUs from NVIDIA, etc. Luce, what do you think about this potential risk for Tesla?
I think the risk is very real. I don't think the Trump administration will really do anything to protect Tesla specifically because Elon now has ties to him. And I think that, basically it's long investors should be extremely careful.
Okay. Crunch, do you have any views on this topic specifically, that ZEV credit sales may not be as lucrative going forward as they have been for Tesla in the past? What do you think?
Sorry, I've been typing and didn't get that part. I'll listen more. Thanks.
Okay, let's move it down to listener mode. In the meantime, Bull 2035, do you have any views on this topic? If Trump administration puts the kibosh on EV tax credits as well as ZEV credit sales, does that, in your mind, reduce potential intrinsic value for Tesla in the future?
Well, it would in the short term because this would be a lot of income and profit that would go away. Long term, competitors would go out of business, Rivian and so forth. They would accelerate the out of business of a lot of the competitors. So long term is probably better for Tesla, but certainly in the short term, it would be a problem.
How do you think the market will react to such news?
I feel Tesla will be fine. I would be very concerned to be a Lucid or a Rivian or a GM shareholder at that point, or Ford, because they're relying on these credits to keep their business afloat, so to speak. Tesla is really not. So it will be a storm for Tesla, but Tesla will survive the storm. The others might not.
Thank you very much. And Truth to a T in YouTube live chat really liked your answer and says nailed it. So there you go. Luce.
There needs to be a transition between from ICE vehicles to electric vehicles. You remove the tax, you may make competitors go bankrupt, but the transition to electric vehicles will be greatly impeded. So I don't think it's positive, generally speaking, even if competitors go out of business.
Bull 20.
I think that answer that was just given was very right about 5 years ago, but the cost of making EVs keeps going down, 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 which means I don't think these credits are necessary for at least Tesla to survive.
Thank you. I see we have a couple of hands. So this is a hotly debated topic. It is material in the shorter term. If your time horizon is less than 1 year, or even 1 to 2, 3 years, this is a very important topic because Tesla does generate billions of dollars of cash, hard cash with 100% profit margin from selling these dev credits. So it's very important to the stock price in the near term. In the longer term, as Bull 2035 said, and I agree, that it would improve Tesla's position in the competitive market, in the EV competition. So it's going to be a tug of wars with investors between time horizons. So we're going to focus on this some more. But I do want to say a quick thank you to those of you who really care about Tesla Live's growth. And for example, Sanjeev Batra in YouTube Live Chat just said, it's getting colder. So I wore 2 coats today. Coat check 187 and 188. So sometimes people have 2 accounts on YouTube or even 3 accounts, and they literally change accounts to hit the like button and help us grow. I mean, I really appreciate the passion that some people have for Tesla Live. I know who you are. Thank you so much. All right, let's continue with the discussion. Alexander, then Lauren, then Luce.
Yeah, the tax credit that the consumer gets is not needed. We in Sweden deleted that tax credit years ago, and EVs are still selling like hotcakes here.
Thank you. Lauren?
My belief is that, especially for the long term, that these goals were smoke and mirrors anyway. I think the legacy auto companies had no chance of hitting them. I think that's been clear for years. And one way or another, they were going to have to release or relax these goals before 2027 or 2030 or whatever it is, just because there was no way they were going to hit it. It would have just been too politically painful to bankrupt everyone. So, it's not great news for Tesla, but I think the Kamala administration would have had the same long-term result.
Thank you, Lauren. Luce?
So in contrast of what Alexander said, I have to say that here in Italy, there was a time where incentives were placed, and basically they lasted 2 days, 3 days, something like that. And basically everybody who could, electric vehicles were assaulted in those few days. And then I want also say that Tesla will surely survive, no question asked. The point is the adoption of electric vehicles, the grid, the infrastructure. Obviously, you need to transition to electric vehicles, and you need the legacy automakers to go out of business. It has to be accelerated.
Thank you. Bull 2035.
Yeah, the number one thing for me, though, is the cost of goods sold keeps going down, down, down. And if we see that number continue to go down 5 to 7% a year for EVs, eventually EVs are going to be so much cheaper than gas-powered vehicles, forgetting the gas savings and everything else, that it would be a foolish buyer to buy a gas at that point.
Any other points on this? Robert, what do you think about these dev credits going away in the near term?
Don't mind it. Tesla is leading across the board. I don't think the credits are necessary for Tesla's success. It certainly does hurt the auto industry in America if they can't get their act together. But I'm with everybody else that's commented. I don't see a problem here.
Okay, so it sounds like everyone on the speaker board believes that if ZEV credits and EV credits and IRA production tax credits go away under the Trump administration and the stock price drops in response to that, that it might be a good time to keep adding to your shares. Does everyone agree with that view on the speaker board? Would anyone would like to argue against that point of view? Bull 2035.
I agree with that point of view. The only thing is, I need to see COGS keep coming down. That's the number one key for me.
Edward.
Yeah, I think the only way maybe that it's going to be a positive boost to the stock is if in the surrounding time frame of them removing that, if companies bail out of the situation. If you see a couple other companies bailing out of the whole EV concept at that point, then you might see it boost Tesla stock potentially. But otherwise, I think 10% like drop should be like sufficient there.
Okay, so Edward says if Trump comes out, so Trump is making a series of announcements about cabinet assignments and policies that he's going to enact in the first day of office. And maybe we're going to start hearing about first 100 days soon. And, with this now assignment of the new EPA head, we're probably going to get some headlines in the coming days and weeks about it as well. So Edward says he expects a 10% drop if these credits go away in the stock price. Luce?
I can assure you that 10% is literally not enough if the tax credit go away. I would expect, at this pricing, it will go like down 40% minimum, but I would expect literally to drop to $160, something like that. 10%, come on.
Edward, Lucha says 10%, come on, it's a regular Tuesday. He expects a 40% drop from current prices if these credits go away. What do you think, Edward?
No, that's ridiculous. I usually agree with him, but that's ridiculous. I mean, I'm not saying it's not possible for a massive hit, but Tesla, what did they pull in 700 million and they pulled in 3 billion of positive cash flow? I mean, that's not 40%, And like I said, it's going to affect all the other companies. It's an equal playing field. So it's not like it's affecting Tesla only. In that case, I would say, yeah, but it's not. It's affecting the whole industry.
Lucha, Edward says you are ridiculous. He usually agrees with you, but on this point, you are making such a huge mistake that he will never talk to you again. Go ahead.
Bro, the stock literally dropped 5% today and nothing happened. Okay, can you imagine if something major happened, like the tax credit goes away? 10%, double than today, that nothing happened?
Okay, now I'm going to put you guys on the spot. Okay, no Googling, okay? Luce answers the question first, and then Edward. I'm going to ask the same question, no Googling, honor system. Luce. Actually, we're going to go to Edward first. Edward, how much money did Tesla make selling credits in the last 12 months?
Okay, let me think. 1.5. I would say right around, I'm just ballparking, but right around 3 billion in this last year. I'd say 3 billion.
Yeah, Luce?
I think 800 millions.
Actually, Edward is closer. I think 800 million last quarter alone. The question was for the last year. Interesting. Wow. So Edward, in his head, when he's making these points, he knows that Tesla made billions of dollars in the last year alone selling these credits. And it was actually going to go up in the next 12 months, and still believes that the impact on the stock price isn't going to be nearly as high as Luce thinks, even though Luce thought it was just in the hundreds of millions of dollars range. All right, let's go to Lauren and now Robert. Lauren?
Hey, my opinion is that like Wall Street is dumb, but they're not that dumb, and this is priced into the stock already. No one thinks these credits are sticking around, especially once Trump got elected. And you know, there might be some dip the day of, but it won't be definitely not 40%. And I would be surprised even by 10. I feel like Wall Street's got this in their models. They know it's up. They're not quite that dumb.
Okay. Lauren said, Bull and Luce and Edward are all right. Wall Street is the dumb one. Okay, Robert?
It really hurts the other EV companies. Let's talk about the consumer. Is the consumer not going to want EVs in the future, or autonomous EVs particularly? Not true. It hurts the other ones a lot.
Thank you, Robert. But on the other hand, it doesn't hurt the ice makers. It benefits the ice makers in the near term, right?
It does a little bit, but you know, there's a lot of other things that are going on. You know, and plus, does this affect us in Europe or in China? No, and China is what really matters here.
All right, this has been a great conversation, everybody. I'm gonna have one more question for the table on the panel of speakers here. We're gonna go around and make a guess on the stock price in a second, but I want to congratulate everybody for us reaching 200 plus likes this live stream. If you haven't done so right now, please go to the top of your screens, click that YouTube link button, head over to YouTube, like and subscribe, help us grow the channel. I think Edward has a YouTube channel as well, and he knows how difficult it is to grow this YouTube channel. It really needs this grassroots effort from our thousands of listeners that come here every day, tens of thousands of listeners that come here on a weekly basis. So please take action and help us grow by hitting the like button and subscribing on YouTube. Okay, now the question for the roundtable here. What do you think is the lowest stock price that Tesla stock will see this year going forward? Okay, so this year going forward, sorry, let's see. Yeah, in the next, actually, let's see, in the next 12 months. Okay, in the next 12 months, what do you think will be the lowest stock price? So in the second half of this year, the lowest has been about $200 per share. Edward?
Yeah, I'd have to say probably 30% lower than it's currently at. What are we at, 230 right now? 230, 30%. You're looking at maybe, I'm sorry, 330. You're looking at maybe 260, 275. I don't know what the test levels are, you know, technical analysis wise, but somewhere in that range.
All right, before we continue, Drew Soul, thank you very much. Drew just gifted one more Value Analyst membership to our YouTube channel. Free membership to the YouTube channel will be automatically assigned by YouTube to our most active listener on YouTube. So you can head over to YouTube, put in some watch hours, hit like, subscribe, share, leave comments, and live chat engagement. All counts towards who will get that free membership to the YouTube channel. All right, thank you, Edward. Let's go to Luce and Lauren.
I think in the next 12 months, 180 is feasible.
Wow. So Luce expects Tesla stock in the next 12 months to head back down to below 200, specifically 180. And that would have been, yeah, that's amazing. So I think the Tesla stock spent maybe a total of 1 month in the last 5 years at that price, maybe 2 months. That's a very bearish call, Luce. Did you sell your shares then?
Yes, today I sold everything, and I plan to sell puts on the way down, and to buy back to 180 to 200. But I believe that is so overvalued, and as I was saying, there are very high chances that the AI play will not come to fruition anytime soon, and the Trump administration might be negative for Tesla. I think under 200. I think it's a good estimate.
Okay. We now have a true bear on board. A true bear on board, meaning somebody who sold his shares and who's looking to buy back at prices that are 30, 40, 50% lower than what it is today. It's good to have you on the board so we can have balanced discussions. And Luce is now also in the DM group of speakers for the first time. And he used to have very low opinion of this space about a year ago. So that's a hell of a change. Luce, thank you for coming to the speaker board and sharing your views and taking the space seriously and helping it grow as well. Great. Lauren.
I'm going to predict we hit our low of the year this morning, and we're going to be all-time high by Christmas and spend the next year somewhere around or slightly above all-time high.
Okay, so Lauren says the exact opposite of what Luce said. Lauren says we saw the dip this morning, the lowest price this morning in the stock price, and from here on out, we're going back up again. Interesting. I am feeling a little anxious with these two speakers on board. I don't know what to do right now. I need to separate them a little bit. You guys are sitting too close. Let's go to Edward and Robert.
I think the one negative headwind is the EV credits being removed, because obviously that takes away a lot of cash from Tesla. But if you look at all the positive headwinds that are pushing us forward, and there's like 10, so I'm not going to go into it in detail. But I will tell you that I bought more shares today, and I'm buying shares until 600 to 700 minimum on the stock share price. And I won't sell a single share until I get over 2,000 to 3,000 per share. And then I'll start slowly selling at that point. That's me and what I'm personally doing. I just wanted to be transparent.
Thank you, Edward. I appreciate your transparency. This is amazing. Before we go to Robert, Luce, one of our sponsors just said that if you're going to be on the speaker board, he's going to pull his sponsorship. No, I'm kidding. He did not say that. He did not say that. But he did say that he wants to go back in time, turn back the hands of time, and delete the last few minutes. He's going to wash his ears. That's what he said. All right. Robert, go ahead.
Since owning a Tesla in 2018, it's gone down 40% at least 6 times. So if you're a Tesla investor, prepare for volatility. It will go up and down, and you have to have either a short-term plan like your speaker does, or stick in long-term and just ride it all out.
Thank you, Robert. Yeah, I mean, the Tesla stock seems to have once a year, which is amazing. And back in 2022, when I thought it was going to triple, it went down to 1/3. So, to those of you who are asking what the stock is going to do to me in the replies to my posts, in live chats, all I have to say is, all I know is that I know nothing, and stop asking. So, you're asking the wrong person. Luce.
So you guys, you have to consider the objective you have investing in general. What do you want to achieve? My objective is financial independence. Today, I doubled the amount I can invest, which means that if Tesla goes back to 240, 220, whatever it is, like I can buy so much more, and my chances to be financially independent have increased significantly. So if today the price is extremely high, you can consider actually take the profit because it's going to be very important for your future.
All right, Luce. Hustle Town.
This question is very important to me because I have calls that expire in 2025 of December. So I am very concerned with having it half before then. So I am paying close attention. But I don't think we go back below $1 trillion market cap. I truly believe that. If it goes back to 250, I'm continuing to make leaps out into 2027 and beyond because there's not a whole lot of roadblocks in front of us.
Okay, so Hustletown is an incredible supporter of the space. Every single day, he is one of the first ones to request to speak. He's here the entire time. He's always there for the watch parties. He's always liking the videos, subscribe to the channel. I believe he's also a member of the YouTube channel as well. He's liking, reposting the spaces on X, and he's always the first commenter below my videos. So that's the value Hustletown brings to the space. And he's always letting me know if there's audio issues, and just an incredible speaker. And YouTube Studio, which is for creators, just introduced a function. Look at your most active, engaged listeners. And of course, number one, Hustletown. Hustletown, thank you. And Hustletown just proved that he knows what he's talking about too, by referring to the market cap instead of the share price. Hustletown said, right now, the market cap for Tesla is $1.04 trillion. He said he doesn't expect the stock price, the market cap to decline below $1 trillion. I think that's a hell of a call with a very tiny margin for error. It's a very aggressive, confident call, but just the fact that he referred to market cap as opposed to stock price, I think, in my mind at least, puts him one step above the rest of the crowd in terms of these conversations. I think we should refer to the market cap. All right, Lauren.
Yeah, I'd like to lay out a little personal story. If you don't want to go down this rabbit hole, cut me off. But counterpoint to Luce's plan and opinion, I had a personal story. I think it was about 2020. I was heavily invested in Tesla, and I sold all my shares right at the beginning of COVID because I was freaked out. Tesla went down a lot, but it never hit the kind of the equivalent of the 180, 200 Luce is looking for to get back in. I failed to get back in. It took off after that like a rocket with all the stimulus in a way I just couldn't even imagine was possible at the time. And I did chase back into Tesla eventually. I still made a lot of money, but I made about $12 million less than I would have if I would have just done nothing and not sold my shares. And everyone's always fighting their last battle. So I guess that's the last battle I'm fighting, is trying not to make that mistake again. But it's the downside of that strategy of sell everything and wait for this great entry point.
Thank you, Lauren. Let's go to Robert.
It's a great point. My money manager, when I bought in 2018, told me about Amazon, which in 1999 was $112. And in 2001, just 2 years later, it went all the way down to $6, and everything else was going bankrupt. All of his clients sold, and none of them bought back in, and it started ripping back up. I can't figure out what the tops and the bottoms are. A neighbor of mine in 2020 bought at the top of one of the peaks at Tesla and sold at the bottom right before it started ripping back up. And I can't figure that out. Maybe Luce is a better investor than I am, or can read the markets better than I can. And God bless him if he makes a fuckload of money. I've decided just to be a long-term investor and buy companies that I care about and that I've done my homework on, and that I think in a decade are going to be really much bigger than they are today. And I'll let all the other stuff take care of itself.
Thank you, Robert. Luce, there you go. People are skeptical that you're going to be able to time this market. I appreciate your candor and your willingness to share with a big off-consensus call. Off-consensus in the sense that in this space, we rarely hear a prediction of Tesla stock heaven. Luce, and then Edward.
So obviously can be luck, but in the last 3 years, I always timed this Tesla stock perfectly. I bought 2 years ago at 137, 6 months ago at 145, and today I'm selling because it's overvaluated so much. And the road to autonomy, the road to the AI play is so long that thinking that nothing will go wrong for 1.5 years, 2 years, and the stock will trade at 100 PE for this amount of time, what are the chances? Like in your mind, you need to model out a possibility range. Obviously, for me, selling today was the right choice.
All right, Luce. I think you're going to need to hire some professional protection. Maybe some snipers on your house, the way you're talking. And but yeah, but in this space you're safe. I will protect you because we do need some bears for balanced discussions. Thank you. Alexander. Sorry, Edward, then Alexander.
Yeah, I wanted to add to that issue. I can't remember who said it, but they lost a potential gain. So, and I did the same thing in 2020. I literally sold the day after the 1,000 crash, and I was buying in lower. Okay, but I didn't get as many shares as I would have had if I would have just left it in, which was kind of crazy because I thought I was playing the market almost perfectly. And I lost 300 shares. I'm still regretting that issue today. And another issue is taxes. I had to pay 48,000 in taxes that year. That was ridiculous. And I was like, okay, well, that hurt as well. So that like added to the fact of the trading versus long term and waiting, deferring those taxes. Now also, when Luce was talking about valuation does not always determine the buying and selling of securities. Okay, that's just one tiny element. But everybody's always, oh, Tesla's overvalued. Even Elon said it was overvalued multiple times. Okay, but that doesn't change whether people buy or sell the stock. You know, that's my opinion on that.
Thank you, Edward. Luce, Edward's passion is also reflecting YouTube live chat right now. We have some really great participants in YouTube live chat. And for example, Needy Tortellini says, maybe Luce can predict when my Cybertruck is going to be delivered too. Tyrone says, Luce is about to become Fred. And then another person responded, the accent needs work. And then Needy said, are we sure Luce isn't just Yaman on an alt account with an accent? Luce should talk to Lord Pudiflaco, Drew Soul says. Luce, not a good investor. Man, I'm already seeing. That's amazing. All right. Well, we have really good participation right now in X Space and also on YouTube Live. So we can actually keep this going. I don't really have any commitments right now. And what I'm going to do is early on in this space, for those of you who just joined, early on in this space, we had a really great discussion specifically on Optimus for about 30, 40 minutes with Wes, who used to work at Tesla and SpaceX, and is really, really knowledgeable about both hardware, software, about production of these of vehicles. He was answering a kind of fire session of question and answer, and I thought it was very informative. So what I'm going to do is clip that 30 minutes and publish it on a standalone basis on the YouTube channel. If you don't want to miss it, you want to focus on that, I'm going to cut down some of the ahs and ums and the pauses, maybe take out a couple of the questions that really didn't add much to the conversation. So it's going to be edited and it's going to be published on the YouTube channel. So if you want to listen to that part on Optimus with Wes, head over to the YouTube channel through the link at the top of our screens and subscribe to the channel and turn your notifications. All right, let's go to Alexander and then Omar.
All hail Luce. All hail Luce. Thank you, Yaman, for asking me what I think about the stock price. I mean, I only been a shareholder since 2017, so what do I know? My lowest point is, I think, 250 will be the lowest point.
All right, thank you. We had a really wide range of guesses to that question. So let's ask Omar next. Omar, the question that I asked everyone is, what do you think is going to be the lowest price that the Tesla stock sees in the next 12 months? And the range of estimates is from 180 to it's only going to go up. So what do you think?
No, and I don't care. You have really with Tesla a company that's really valued based on future growth, right? So if you were to, as a base case scenario, start valuing it on, let's say, 20 times trailing earnings, then it's going to be a fraction of the price. So with a stock like Tesla, you always have to know that there could be volatility. It could fall quite a bit, and the bears will still be saying it's overvalued. But the minute you start asking yourself how low it's going to go, you've already lost money. The minute you start thinking about how to time it, how do I get in and out at the right time? It's like saying, "Hey, throw a bunch of plates off the balcony and I'll catch every single one." Trying to predict the stock price. You may catch a lot of them, but every once in a while you're going to drop a plate and it's going to break. So it could go quite a bit lower. It could go, 50% lower, sure, depending on what happens in the world. It could double. Um, this is really a company that I look at as one to buy and hold forever, never pay capital gains tax. Obviously, if you need money or something, you may have to sell equity holdings, but generally, it's the last thing I want to sell, right? This is a company that I think is long term going to be a multi-trillion-dollar company. And I think Wall Street's looking at this, they're saying, hey, there are millions of driverless rides happening today. This is real. These advances in AI, they've made this a possibility. They've made it possible to do this at scale. And Tesla is going to be a major, major beneficiary of this transition to autonomous electric vehicles. So, yeah, it may go up, it may go down. I can't predict it. The market is fickle, it's emotional, right? Warren Buffett's old quote about your crazy neighbor who's, shouting quotations at you. What I really focus on is, what could the value of the business be? So the question for me is, okay, well, $1 trillion, $2 trillion valuation, could the business ever support this valuation long term? Is there something there that you could actually say, okay, the cash flows of this are, in the tens of billions of dollars, maybe hundreds of billions of dollars potentially, that this valuation could be justified? And that's really how I kind of think about whether to hold or whether to sell.
Okay, great. I'm going to go to Edward, and then Omar, I think, had a tweet earlier and said intrinsic value or the fair value for Tesla today is $2 trillion. Let's get some details on that if we can. Edward, first, go ahead.
Yeah, I just have one more quick question for Luce, and I'm not trying to be mean or anything like that. I'm just, from seeing from past experience. Now, what if, for example, the stock does race up, let's say, to 500 before you get in? What do you plan on doing then? I mean, are you just going to try to wait till it gets back to 350, or what would be the plan of attack? It's a hard situation.
Luce, Edward says, what are you going to do if you keep watching this stock rise and rise and rise and rise and rise? You sold your shares today or yesterday, and you're going to cry yourself to sleep thinking about doing the math in your head of what you could have made?
Yeah, so me selling today is an act to position myself the best I can, in my opinion, to take the opportunity that will make me financially independent. If Tesla tomorrow goes to 550, I will not be financially independent yet. If I need, I would have to wait until Tesla is a 6 trillion market cap. Okay, how many companies reach that level? Instead, selling today and planning to buy back later if the price is right, I will just need Tesla to reach 3.5 trillion. So the chances actually increased of me being financially independent with Tesla by selling today. Yeah, so would I cry to sleep? No, because of $550, nothing would have changed in my life yet. Understand?
There you go, Edward. I think he just cursed at you in Italian after he put himself to sleep. Mute. Alexander.
Yeah, Italians retire on age of about 45 and get a pension from the government, so Luce will be safe either way.
Yeah, Luce, just to kind of clarify here, you sold all of your shares, right? Because people just can't believe YouTube live chat just went berserk after that. Did you sell all of your shares?
Yeah, everything.
Oh my gosh. Okay, Luce sold all of his shares. For those of you in YouTube live chat asking for clarification. Was it yesterday or today?
Was today, but in the European Stock Exchange, basically it's your pre-market, basically. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So was it like a couple percent down, right? 1 to 2% down pre-market today?
It was the average price is $347. So it's nice.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow. $347. And I think during regular market hours today, the stock didn't reach that point. The high today is 345. Wow. Okay, Luce. Well, tomorrow, if the stock goes up another 10%, you're going to be up here. People are going to be like, oh, Luce was wrong. We were right. And then the next day, we'll see. This is how it works, day-to-day price actions. People get a little too excited about it because of those content creators that just focus on short-term stock prices. They kind of hold these spaces and talk about stock prices for half hour. If it wasn't for those content creators, maybe people wouldn't focus on this trading too much. Anyway, we have Yoda on the board. Yoda?
Sorry to join late, Luce. What was the approximate position you had? I don't know if you disclosed that, but is it a significant position?
Yeah, it was very significant. Not enough to be well off and not working anymore, obviously, but I invested everything I had and also a good significant part of the money that my family owned. Yeah, so it was very significant. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I mean, the guy's obviously being genuine. Okay. So take it easy, everybody. People can be wrong. They go around for a year selling Tesla, saying Tesla will triple, and then it just goes to 1/3. And so what if he has to buy back later on at a slightly higher price, or maybe he has to end up, investing into some other stock? Who knows? But it's, I think, admirable that he speaks up and answers these questions, and that puts him ahead of most of the people who are kind of hiding behind aliases and trying to manipulate the market or others, and or attacking them. So I respect Luce for being on the speaker board and contributing to the discussion here. Edward?
Yeah, I just had one last question for him. I was just wondering if there was any specific thing, because I'm always looking for the bear side of the equations. Is there any specific thing that made you want to do this today just because it dropped? Or is there anything that inherently you're like, okay, there's a huge trigger here, I'm out?
Luce?
Yeah, as I said, today was a significant day in which I think the chances of me achieving financial independence were higher by selling. Okay, today was that day. 1 month ago, 2 months ago, when Tesla was 260, 270, was still worth it keep my money in Tesla. And right now, the chances, the possibilities have inverted.
Luce, what do you mean by the chances of your financial investment was higher by selling? Can you kind of elaborate on a little bit?
Yeah. So, for example, let's say that Tesla never goes down. Let's say it keeps $350 value per share, like for the next 2 years. So I'm not buying back. Okay. So now I have double the money to invest, which means I can invest in a shitty technological ETF and make, I don't know, 50%. I can invest in Nvidia, which is at 30 P. I can basically have double the investing power beside investing in Tesla or not, which increases the chances I can methodically and like safely achieve financial independence by investing dramatically. Now, I also believe that Tesla will go down. I also believe that, which means that not only basically I go a little bit slower, maybe for the next few months, but it also means that I could go all in Tesla way stronger, okay, with way more momentum. And now I can achieve financial independence by Tesla being a 2 trillion, 3 trillion market cap and not being 6 trillion. So the chances of me achieving financial independence increased today by selling. Yeah. This was the trigger. Today, this was the trigger for me.
Thank you, Luce. Yoda?
Yeah, Luce, thank you for sharing. I think it goes to show that, you know, sometimes when the stock is flying high, it's actually much more difficult to not sell. You know, maybe when the stock is down, it's relatively easy to hold for in hopes for a better day. And I think at a certain point, the holdings is significant enough that if you know, cut the risk off today, you can sort of live off if you put all that into even like a term deposit or real estate or something more predictable. So I think, thank you for sharing. It is definitely a hard decision. And I totally understand that even though there's more upside in the future, that you're kind of taking the winnings today. Nothing wrong with that.
All right. Nikola Tesla. Nicola, you may unmute yourself and go ahead. 3, 2, 1. Yeah. Let's see. Lucia, we have a question for you. I know you said over the next 12 months that you expect Tesla to dip below $200 and you might be writing some puts to as a kind of a limit buy order. Specifically, Jerusalem asks, when do you feel Tesla will dip below 200? Do you think this is a near-term type of thing, or do you think it's going to be maybe later in 2025?
So I think the divergence between the share price and the company itself and its earning, it's so high that even by the sheer weight of the reality, it could go down, I don't know, 10% a month, something like that, until you reach a more sensible valuation of $200 a share. So it could happen after the tax credit is removed, like something so impactful like that, and can happen very quickly, or it can happen in 10 months, like by sheer divergence between reality and stock price.
Can I make a wild guess, Lucia, that you follow Gary Black and read his tweets?
Well, I follow everybody. I follow Grant, Motorhead, Omar. I follow everybody.
Well, you follow only 90 people as opposed to hundreds or thousands of people that some people tend to follow. Do you follow Gary Black?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So it sounds like your sale is focused more around high PE ratio. You mentioned a couple of times when discussing Tesla and NVIDIA just a second ago, as well as concerns around ZEV credits and EV tax credits going away. Omar, let me ask you a question. Yesterday, we discussed the credit sales that Tesla has benefits from. Today, we got some new information. Trump assigned a new head to the EPA. His name is Lee Zeldin, a congressman from New York. It sounds like on the agenda is freezing other emission standards at the 2027 levels. And originally they were expected to get tighter and tighter and tighter, which would lead to Tesla making more money selling ZEV credits. But if they're frozen at 2027 levels, then it would cap what Tesla can make and maybe even lower what Tesla can make selling ZEV credits. And he may also try to remove California's waiver to set its own emission standards. It sounds like Luce is looking at these news and Trump administration. Earlier he said Trump administration on a net basis is not going to be good for Tesla. What do you think about Luce? Sorry, did I misstate? Go ahead.
No, yeah, I mean there are other points as well. Can I just two or three more points for the reason why I sold? Yeah.
Sure, and now we can go to Omar.
Yeah, so basically, if I wanted to see like how good V13 will be, and V13 basically uses most of the hardware for capabilities, I basically would have to wait until the end of this month, but more realistically 2-3 months, because the statistics would have to go to the FSD tracker, right? And so basically, first of all, just to see if V13 is a breakthrough or not, I would have to wait and trust that this valuation lasts 2 or 3 months, which I don't believe. But beside that, I don't think hardware 4 will get us there. And we know that hardware 5 will come will be available to the end of 2025 or early 2026. And this is with Elon's vision, okay, which we know how its prediction goes. So basically more than 2 years before, in my opinion, we can have an hardware capable maybe of having autonomous vehicles. So do I believe that, this is another point as well, do I believe in 2 years of this high valuation without seeing any trace of an AI play? Okay, maybe you believe hardware 4 is capable of, I'm not, because we are too far away, logically speaking. And I'm bullish, long term, I'm bullish. Long term, Tesla will get there. But right now was the right time for me.
I mean, Luce is certainly proving what we said before, that sometimes long-term bull investors, long-term Tesla investors make the best bears in terms of their arguments. Omar, before Omar, let's go to Yoda and then Omar.
Luce, were you at the We Robot event, and do you have you driven FSDs from 11 to 12, and maybe not because of where you are?
No, I was not, Yoda. I was not at the event, and beside the FSD trackers and video, I didn't test it myself.
Okay, thank you. Drew Soul says on YouTube Live Chat, I find it confusing why people don't see ZEV credits as a form of business revenue, even if it's temporary. The accumulation has provided capital to build factories free of charge. Money is money. ZEV credits can be recognized as a free check to a company to lower its capex for investments. I think that's correct. I don't think you're seeing anything wrong about that. Omar, what do you think?
I think this whole conversation is just so funny. Of course, when you have a run up like thing runs up 40%, a lot of people get scared, especially, people who are traumatized, and they sell. It's just normal market dynamics. When you see a 42% run up, eventually you got to have a little bit of a pullback. And all these Tesla investors going, oh my God, he sold. So what? He sold. Everyone can make whatever trades you want. Life isn't going to end. But we've heard these bear arguments time and time again. Oh, it's overvalued. FSD is never going to work. Da 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 da. And they just completely miss the point as usual. So, I'm in San Francisco right now. Last night I was in Los Angeles. The end-to-end on the highway stack drove me here 6 hours, completely hands-free, which I think is a game changer. The new end-to-end highway stack was so much better, going around slow cars, doing so many things better. It took that I-5 to 152 exit that the old autopilot stack could never do. This is a game changer for road trips. So, this is something where everybody, there's almost 100% penetration for autopilot on highway road trip use. With this rolling out in the US and around the world, everybody who uses autopilot on the highways aka almost every Tesla user, is going to try this and say, wow, the hands-free plus the end-to-end on the highway is a game changer for road trips. I mean, this is a product that nobody else has. And this is going to drive, obviously, I think, margin expansion, but it's going to drive hype. It's going to drive excitement as people try this, as investors try this. And, you know, the ZEV credits, I think we're going to see record regulatory credit revenue in 2025. Europe is getting stricter. China is getting stricter. The US is talking about not increasing it as fast, but it would still be going up. And the upside of it is that you have a situation where they're not dumping these EVs onto the market to meet the regulatory requirements. Because when you say, okay, well, we're losing $2 billion on our EVs, but if we don't make the EVs, the government's going to fine us $3 billion for being above the standards. Well, now we need to make these EVs. And hey, if we're dumping them onto the market and Tesla's not able to price their cars as high, that's all the same to us. Hey, at least we're avoiding a fine or avoiding paying Tesla directly. If you sort of soften this in the US market, it's going to lead to a situation where this sort of, I think, EV hangover subsides and it gives Tesla more pricing power. Moreover, there is a lot of kind of question about what's going to happen from a regulatory perspective, but Trump and Elon are BFFs, best friends forever. Okay, first buddy, they're calling him. They, you know, are watching TV together, talking together. When Trump has to call Zelensky, you know, he's like, "Hey, Elon, jump on this call with me," right? They went golfing. He's there golfing with them. He's helping shape the policy. He's helping shape what they're doing. And Trump understands that he is in the White House in great part because of Elon's financial contribution to his reelection. Now, are you going to go and tank the business that just got you elected, knowing that there's a midterm coming up in 2 years? Probably not. That's probably a consideration. So I think part of this price action has been a reflection that there's a huge incentive for the White House to not have policy that's harmful to Tesla, which is that they need Tesla, the cornerstone of Elon Musk's wealth, to be doing well for him to really continue to make generous $100 million donations.
Okay, that was a series of great points by Omar, Luce. We're gonna go through them, but before that, hold on a second. Drew says your poll is incorrect. Lucius, why is it correct? So I just created a poll on YouTube that says Luce sold all of his shares. Do you think he will buy back his shares at the lower or higher price? Okay.
Yes or no kind of doesn't imply.
Oh shit. Oh my god. Okay. Let me reword that. So this is what happens when you're trying to do 7 things at once. Because I'm no Elon Musk, so can't do 85 things at once. Let me. You know what, Luce? Luce, you have an accent, don't you, on your E?
Well, I have an Italian accent, maybe. I don't know what to mean.
No, not in your speech, in your name. Does the E has a apostrophe?
No, it's Luce. It's Luce, but if you want to call it any other way, it's okay.
No, I know it's Luce, but does the spelling of your name, does E have kind of like that? I forget what it's called in French. But...
no accent. No.
Okay, gotcha. All right. Luce sold all of his shares. Do you think he will buy back his shares at a lower or a higher price? I just changed the answers, lower or higher. Okay, so you can let me know what you think. All right, Robert.
There's two ways for Luce to be correct. One way is the macro changes dramatically and goes down. I don't see that happening, but it's possible. And if it does, all stocks get hammered, right? We've been through that many times in the past few years. The second way is Tesla stumbles in some way and misses a quarter's numbers or doesn't meet expectations or something goes radically wrong. And I don't see that coming because we have a new Model Y coming, which is the #1 selling vehicle in the world. And they're going to announce that in the next few months. We have FSD take-up rates are really low right now, and I expect those to go up over the next 12 months a great deal. And then we have the hype from Optimus and Robotaxi holding the stock up. And I don't see those changing anytime in the next 12 months. So it'll be interesting to see if Luce turns out to be correct that the stock goes down. Why did it go down? And when does it become favorable for him to buy back in? Or does he buy some other stock like NVIDIA? Because NVIDIA is going to, if it's a macro thing, NVIDIA is going to face the same downturn.
Right, Luce. Luce, what do you think of the points that Omar made, that even though ZIV credits or other credits may go away, that he believes 2025 will see record credit sales number, and that Trump is incentivized now to kind of keep Elon happy? Lowering profits for one of his businesses wouldn't be the best course of action for Trump. And even though you may be correct, let's say, that robotaxis are a few years out, Omar thinks that FSD supervised will lead to higher take rates, higher margins, higher revenues for Tesla, which could lead to a rise in stock price.
Yeah, so point one was about, can we go point by point?
Yeah, sure. The point one was, he said that you're so focused on robotaxis. Everybody's so focused on robotaxis, but in the near term, FSD supervised is getting really good, and he expects rising take rates, FSD take rates that will lead to higher margins and higher revenues, and people actually rushing to buy Teslas because they want to use FSD. You don't see that happening in the next year or two?
No, I don't believe. No, I don't see it happening. No, like we are at 90p. Okay, I will be fine with 60. I understand that Tesla will probably increase its earnings. I understand it, but it will not increase it so dramatically that a 90, 100p is justified. Whatever they increase FSD take rate by 10%. Whatever they do, they sell more.
Okay.
Than credit.
So let me ask Omar. So that's a good. So we're going point by point, the points that Omar made, and Luce is defending his position to sell all of his shares, hoping that he'll buy back below 200, maybe as low as $180 per share, which would be a significant drop for the stock, but not so rare. I mean, Tesla stock goes down 50% almost every year. So Omar, Luce says that even though FSD is improving, that it will not lead to a huge take rate increase. And even if it does slightly increase the take rate, the PE ratio is so high that it would still be high. What do you think about that?
Yeah. I mean, we've heard this for a number of years. I think the take rate is already higher than ChatGPT plus and LLMs.
Omar,
I
let
think it's
me ask you something. Your sound quality is actually pretty low right now. It got worse from the last time you were going. It was also bad. Are you not on your iPhone? Did something happen to your iPhone 16? Yeah, he might be in the car or something. Well, I think we can still hear you, kind of. Why don't you continue?
yeah. I mean, we've heard these kinds of arguments before. I think the take rate is already higher than paid LLMs. I think it's going to continue to go up. But we're, you know, throw away your copy of The Intelligent Investor. You're not going to find out what the price action in this environment is based on any sort of multiple. Okay. Your PE is not going to help you here. The animal spirits have taken over in this name. When you have this type of price action, you have shorts blowing up. You have people like Bill Gates saying, oh, crap, right? You have all kinds of market mechanics. You have people getting into options plays. Just zoom out and look at the chart and tell me this thing isn't headed for an all-time high.
Luce, there you go. It's not about the PE. It's not about the fundamentals. Right now, the stock is being is rising due to emotions, animal spirits, as Omar said, and it could go much, much higher, putting and causing you to cry yourself to sleep at night. But Luce said he's not worried about that, right, Luce, earlier?
No, obviously not. And
You said
like,
you would buy Nvidia in that situation, didn't you?
well, meanwhile, obviously, I will invest in something. Like, I don't think I will keep the money stagnating. Obviously, even
Okay, so
on
so what's
ADR.
your plan? What's your plan in the next 12 months? Let's say Tesla stock doesn't decrease from here. Let's say, who was it? Was it Lauren earlier who said he believes that we saw the dip in the stock today, that from here on out for the next 12 months, the stock is heading higher. Let's say that happened. What's your course of action? Are you just kind of keeping it in ETFs like money market funds, or are you going to buy other stocks?
I would say that I will keep it in an ETF and look around for other opportunities. And Nvidia was an example, but I think it will go much slower than when investing in Tesla. I don't think this is the right time to be invested in Tesla.
Dude, I'm trying to save your life, and you're just digging yourself deeper. I mean, next thing we're gonna hear you shorted this stock. Would you ever short the stock?
No, I will never short Tesla. Like,
Why?
I will
Why
never
would you?
short it.
So you just sold all of your shares, and you believe the stock will go down to 180. So if I just do the calculation from 180 to 340, you're looking for a 40, nearly a 50% drop. Why wouldn't you short the stock?
Well, very simple, because the price maybe goes to 450. That I repeat will not have changed my life in any way, but goes at 450. I get margin called and I lose everything. Okay, I don't give a fuck. I just buy when the company is worth buying lower and keep it long for however it takes.
So this is what happens when people get attacked on speaker board, on live chat, in replies by accounts that are well respected, or even anonymous accounts. They start becoming emotional and they start lashing back. I don't give a fuck, Luce says. Okay, Luce, that's fine. Any other questions, comments? Let's see what we got here. Nvidia is a strong buy, says Drew Soul. In the next 5 years, as AI is still ramping, then the need for chips will decrease as software catches up. Wow, that's a big call, actually. We should probably dig into that later. But clusters could continue to grow into emerging markets too, so who knows? Tyrone McCulloch agrees with Omar that FSD availability in China and Europe, plus Juniper and other near-term catalysts, will lead to stock price going higher. Luce, there you go. AW Productions, Luce, AW Production says, if it helps you sleep at night, you did the right thing. So you're not alone, I guess. I mean, we do try to encourage balanced discussions in Tesla Live. In my pinned tweet for the last year, or close to a year, I've had this saying that Tesla Live welcomes both bulls and bears. So, all right, any other questions, comments? Otherwise, we're going to end the space, everybody. It's been a great, great space. We had early on, I highly recommend, if you just joined us, go back to the beginning and listen to the segment with Wes. Okay, who knows if I'm going to get around to kind of cutting it up and then posting it and everything, but listen to the segment with Wes, who used to work at Tesla and SpaceX. We went deep into Optimus potential in the next few years. What is necessary on the training front in-house for us to start seeing external sales and how that could pan out in the next few years. So that was a very technical, great conversation. It's very informative. I'm definitely going to listen to it again myself. Let's go to Alexander and then Luce.
I got asked today.
All right. Alexander got asked today. Good.
Yes, I added Tesla stock ticker symbol to my Tinder profile, and ask came OTA immediately.
Okay. So just to be clear, did you actually get Actually Smart someone?
No, I only got pictures.
Okay.
Like 3 years ago.
Okay, great. Luce?
So if we are about to close the space, I wanted to play a 10-second audio clip, if it works. Otherwise, I will
Now,
say it myself.
okay, just 1 second though. Is this original song?
No, it's not a song. It's
Okay.
the opening of Pitch Black, the film. It's 10
Okay,
seconds.
go ahead. Go ahead.
A long time between stops. A long time for something to go wrong.
All right, thank you, Luce.
Did you hear that?
A long time between stocks, a long time for something to go wrong. All right. Man, what a dramatic end to episode 223. Thank you very much, everybody. It's been very enjoyable. It's an honor for me to host this space. To our sponsors, to our members, subscribers, patrons, speakers, and everybody else, thank you so much for making this space special every single day. And I look forward to tomorrow. And take care.